Hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here to another update, and welcome back here to another wonderful weekend out here. It is Saturday, January 13th, 2024, about 11:50 a.m. here, California time. Latest activity looks like a very small .9 earthquake here along the California region. We did see some further activity in Oklahoma this morning here. Oklahoma definitely been shaking over the last 24 hours, coming up on looks like about 20 earthquakes out here in the Oklahoma area, specifically outside of the Oklahoma City area, right around the Edmond region. This is a majorly growing area in terms of population increase and new housing development. So a lot of people did feel this earthquake yesterday, and also one this morning, a 4.1 earthquake striking about 3:30 my time. So that would put it about 5:30 there in the Oklahoma area, maybe when people are just waking up or just about ready to get up. I don't know, it's a weekend, depending on if you had the weekend off. Maybe some people were still sleeping. There is the Did You Feel It reports out there all over Oklahoma City, even felt in the Tulsa area as well. Now just mainly some light to moderate shaking being reported from that 4.1 that struck at about 6 kilometers deep earlier this morning. Now, we did see some activity yesterday that was a little bit on the larger size compared to that 4.1 this morning. Yesterday, seen a 4.3. This earthquake, originally coming in as a 4.6 or so, is stuck with a 4.4 magnitude level for the majority of last night, but looks like they've upgraded this or downgraded it to a 4.3 within that same region here. Now, on the map here, it looks like there's a lot of housing development out here. And if you look at the satellite view, that will confirm the new housing developments in this area. Here's one of them outside the Edmond area. All over the place. Lots of new people coming in, lots of new houses going up, right? Well, what's happened since then? I mean, what's happened in the past here that we're seeing this earthquake activity? Is this fault related? Or is this has something to do with wastewater disposal? Well, let's bring up the, back out a little bit. I think that's all we have to do is back out a little bit to see all of these gas stations out here. These are not gas stations to fill up your car with, but these are pumping operations out here. Wastewater disposal ponds and the whole deal. Drilling fields. Northeast Edmond, a gas and oil field. Oil fields galore out here. But if you look at the satellite, that has been covered up. And housing development has been put on that land out here. This looks like some type of wastewater treatment facility. I appreciate all the comments there that were coming in this morning and last night from the activity there in Oklahoma. Wastewater treatment plant here, it looks like. That's what they mentioned. Here's another. This is a heavily wooded area of the region with new housing development out here. So a lot of this activity has, been erased, so to speak, in terms of maybe any signs of old pumping operations out here. I don't know. I haven't driven through this area in a while, but the maps out here don't lie. This whole area used to be a lot of oil pumping operations out here, and it's striking in an area that had a decent amount of oil fields out here. Now, I just want to show you guys real quick the relationship between earthquake activity and the relationship between the wastewater injection. Now, it all started back in the big boom area of 2014 when we've seen a huge amount of pumping operations out here in Oklahoma area. This is just magnitude 3.0 and greater. This article was put out 2019. Huge increase. Earthquakes were getting way up there per year, similar to what Texas is doing. But they've recently made a change, right? When was that? I think it was after that five-pointer a couple years back there that the commission there, Oklahoma Corporation Commission, has been shutting down wastewater disposal wells across the state or cutting the amount of wastewater that is injected into the area below. So since then, we've seen a decrease in earthquake activity. and this shows to about 2018. And it has been declining, so to speak, but, it's still there. We're still seeing earthquake activity, and it's going to happen again in the future as well. There's many articles on this activity out here. Wastewater injection influences the stability of fault zones deep underground. Fault zones that may not have had any slip on them in recent geologic time might be reactivated because the increased pressure within the fault zone actually alleviates the friction that held those faults stable previously. When that friction is relieved, the fault slips and causes the earthquake activity. So that's just one article. There's articles put out here from Stanford. It's not a maybe if the earthquake activity is caused by the wastewater operations there, by injecting it into the ground below. But, it's there. The science has told us that it's there. And, there's a lot of articles on this. I'm not going to read it all, but you guys get the picture, right? The relationship here between the Oklahoma earthquakes and the gas-related operations out there, hydraulic fracturing and whatnot. Wastewater disposal. There we go. Whole bunch of stuff out there. So anyway, we'll cover that maybe on another video. There's a lot to it, a lot of information on it. But for those folks living out here in the Edmond area, just outside Edmond, you guys are sitting on top of some older oil fields out there. And the earthquakes will continue. They will continue because the damage has been done, so to speak, out there, right? It's been limited. We've seen a little bit less and less earthquake activity out here in the Oklahoma area. Let me see what we got for the last 30 days here in Oklahoma. Scattered out and about, right? That's 146. Again, 20 of those were yesterday and this morning here around Oklahoma City. There's been a little area south here of the OKC area around North Dibble oil field, West Washington oil field. Not for sure if they built new housing development out here. And I'm not for sure when this image was taken, but there's a little operation right there. It looks like a couple new houses out here, or I don't know if they're new or not, but they're there on the map. It's all over the place, right? The damage, so to speak, is done. It is done. And out here in Texas, very similar operations, although they really haven't put any new development out here. So it's easy to see all of the pumping operations out here. Even if they're older, they're still out there in the desert. The desert keeps its secrets, right? It keeps it visible. Really hard to hide stuff out in the desert. And there's a lot of older oil fields out here, old tank operations, wastewater disposal ponds, all over the place here where we've seen, last year was a big number. I can't remember how many earthquakes we've seen here, but this is just the last 30 days in Texas of earthquake activity. 500 earthquakes here in the Pecos, Texas area. A lot of oil fields out here. A lot of these water disposal ponds, they are all over the place. So whether you're getting earthquakes now or in the future, they will most likely hit where the oil fields were once operationable. Sometimes it takes months. Sometimes it takes years down the road for these earthquakes to come about. But the relationship between the wastewater injection and earthquakes are way up there. It's almost 100% match, so to speak, between these two events. So we'll continue to watch that and report back on any changes. There was a little one here, that earthquake striking about 4 o'clock this morning. What this tells me is that the North American plate is obviously under strain. There's always strain and pressure out here against the continents, whether you're away from the plate boundary or directly on the plate boundary here, such as California. There's always that strain that's building up. The New Madrid seismic zone is a major hazard zone to the east of Oklahoma here. That's been building up strain for a while. Oklahoma has its own fault systems down here across the Wichita Mountains area and a little bit northward. But, and there may be some older fault systems around the area that haven't seen, activity move in a long, long time. But this activity, wastewater injection process, can definitely trigger the fault systems out there and produce these earthquakes, whether they're dormant or not. It definitely is up there in terms of earthquake activity. All right, I had to check something on my camera real quick. Thought I heard something. Let's see what else we got here across the area. Nothing going on here across the New Madrid seismic zone or the eastern portion of the country. Texas still getting their activity out there in the oil fields. This will continue, folks. I mean, this will definitely continue to go on and on and on with earthquake activity. So I don't know if they have earthquake insurance out there in Oklahoma or not, but it might be a good idea because some of those earthquakes can get large as well and can produce some damage. Pacific Northwest, handful of earthquakes out here. Nothing big going on. California, looks like we got 2 earthquakes here outside of Mount Lassen. Don't believe it's associated with the volcano, which is way over here. This is more deep stress related up against the northern Sierra Nevada mountains here for a 2.5 and a 2.1. We are getting a little bit of rain out here today. The coast range is supposed to be getting quite a bit, but so far here outside of Chico, I've only picked up barely 0.2 of an inch of rain, and I think that's all we're going to get. So this is a quite what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think about it right now, but it's underestimated here in terms of the forecast what they originally called for. So I guess I could use the word depressing because that's I was hoping for some decent rain. Up here in the Clear Lake volcanic field, this is another type of man-made operation event out here. If you look upon closer inspection here, you'll see all these little facilities here in the Northern California area. These are energy producing plants. It's called calpine hydrothermal operations out here, and they actually inject stuff underground to produce energy. I don't want to gross myself out or anybody else out here right now, but look it up, calpine hydrothermal operations. There's a whole process here to produce green energy and power homes out around the Bay Area, and they utilize that heated area below. There's a whole process, but at the same time it creates earthquakes, and they're relatively shallow down there, about a kilometer or two below the area, which tells me obviously it's still active. This region of Mount Konocti is active below the areas, but yeah, mankind has found a interesting way to create energy there. Look it up. Southern California, handful of earthquakes out here, but nothing big. 2.5 map and above shows nothing, zero, nada, nothing for the 2.5 and above. Yellowstone, nothing showing up here. Aside from that movement yesterday, let me make sure I got the most recent image here. Refresh this. So yesterday, here's the 4.3 Oklahoma. Last night, there's the other 4.1 that struck this morning there in Oklahoma. Definitely the first one was a little bit bigger. You can see the width here on the seismograph at Yellowstone. It was not felt up in Wyoming, but these seismograph stations, when they're properly tuned, will pick up distant earthquakes. Some of these other ones that are, I think, they've done something to them recently. They call some of these sheltered out here, away from the elements, but also seems like they're away from the ground shaking. What good are they if they don't pick up any ground movement, So the properly tuned ones look to be over here. Parker Peak is a good one as well. picking up those 2 earthquakes in Oklahoma last night. And the local earthquake here in Yellowstone, it looks like that was centered more over towards the Maple Creek area. That's going to be this little earthquake here. But yeah, did pick up some of the Oklahoma activity from last night and this morning. But as far as earthquake activity there at Yellowstone, fairly minimal. Big Island of Hawaii looks a little bit more active today, mostly around the Pahala area, with some movement taking place there in the last hour or so for a 2.1. Still watching the Kilauea volcano. Let's check the latest update here from the USGS with regards to the volcano there. This update was put out today, and there we go. The volcano is currently not erupting. The same thing, that the fluctuating input of magma to the area is, continuing to come and go. Earthquake activity still at a minimal level. Far as inflation activity, though, inflation activity is still getting up there in terms of the amount of magma buildup below. Let me read that or check out that graph here real quick. Haven't even looked this morning. Let's see what we got here across Kilauea volcano. And on this site here, you can look at many different items of interest: cameras, GPS, gas, infrasound, seismic stations, and tilt meters. Tilt meters tell you what's going on below, right? Whether the ground's sinking, raising, whether inflation's occurring or deflation. Over the past 2 days here, we're coming back down from a large inflation event. As you can see here, downward on the chart, the last 30 days here doesn't really show a huge drop, but it is kind of a downturn from that highest level. But if we were to go back the last couple months here, since the last 2018, or 2000, technically we could go back to the last 2018 eruption there. The bigger one, not these little ones, have been confined to the summit area, filling up the lava lake. But the last one there in 2018, this inflation is the highest level since then, since the 2018 eruption. So we're looking at, any time, I think. I mean, I don't know how much longer this can keep going. I wish I had access to 3 months of data. We would see that this line would probably look the same. Say this was a 3-month time period scale, but this is only 30 days. But it would probably look somewhat similar like this. Kept going up and up, but the numbers would be different over here in terms of the amount of inflation. So we're just kind of watching that, continuing to keep an eye on the Kilauea volcano. The current image here looks a little sunny out there, partly cloudy maybe. This is not magma, this is a lens flare with that sun almost up in that level of the sky. The sun's probably up here, I would suppose, if I were to draw the sun here, creating that lens color like a little flare there. This is not at the surface or anything to do outside. This is nothing to do outside of the lens. This is directly with the lens. Is it getting windy outside? Goodness. So volcanic gases and whatnot still kind of kicking up there across the area of Kilauea volcano, but nothing visible as we can see. I believe that before we do see fissure activity, we'll see a lot of earthquake activity in one confined spot. I'm still leaning towards this area here across the 1974 vents here to the southwestern rift zone for activity. That's where majority of the earthquake movement has taken place. A lot of shallow activity here as well. But then again, we have seen some movement over here in terms of earthquake activity. But we'll continue to watch it. Right now, we can't predict exactly when that volcano is going to stir back up in terms of fissure activity. But we'll know. We'll definitely know soon. As far as a global scale, not a whole lot overnight across the western Pacific. Let me check the earthquake 3D globe here and see what we got. Movement around the Japan area still continuing, it looks like, right around where that 7.5 struck there on the 1st of this year. Clustering going on in the typical zones there across the Philippines and the Indonesia Islands area. A 5.2 did strike over here across the area of Papua New Guinea about 1 o'clock this morning there. But aside from that, the Solomon Islands here still looks pretty quiet. Let me check out the last 30 days here of activity. I guess we've seen a little bit of movement here around this area. I like to go back and look at the last 30 days of activity here, because this basically gives us an indicator where maybe some seismic zones have not seen any activity, or plate boundaries, that is, where we should see some, because almost always are we seeing earthquake activity out here across these plate boundaries. It doesn't go quiet for too long. New Zealand still seems like it needs to catch up out here. In the last 30 days, only, and this is just what the USGS is reporting. There's obviously a lot more smaller ones out here across New Zealand. But they've only seen a handful of earthquakes. Did see a 4.5, pretty deep, back in December, 181 kilometers deep. I think that's associated there with the Cascadia subduction zone, this deeper region. Kind of a sleeping giant here across the North Island off the east coast. You can see it right there. But aside from that, man, goodness, they've been a little on the quiet side. Let's see what's going on here for the GeoNet servers. Yeah, thousands of bookmarks out here because I'm going to read every single one of them one day. It's like, wait a minute, this looks interesting. I'll go back on that at a later date, and it just fills up and it fills up. 4-pointer yesterday, it looks like, South Island area near the Hanmer Springs region, 20 kilometers east of there. Looks like that was a felt earthquake by about 110 people in that zone. That's South Island there, about 12 kilometers deep. Let's see, back out of here real quick. And that was yesterday, their time period, but I think that would be, technically, I think that would still be today, right? I don't know. They're living in the future, so it's hard to remember exactly what the time is over there. But yeah, a little bit of activity stirring up there in the last couple days. That 4-pointer, I'm sure, showed up nicely here across South Island. That's going to be it right there. So it's about 12 hours, 10 to 12 hours ago. So yeah, I guess it would technically still be my today, their yesterday, if that makes sense. Different time zones. So either way, about 10 hours ago. But aside from that, really not seeing anything else going on. A little small aftershock following that 4-pointer. North Island area. Handful of smaller quakes out there, looks like today, but really nothing big going on. They definitely need to catch up, I think, in terms of general plate movement out here across the across these areas. It's the only region that really hasn't seen any major adjustment here recently. And I'm talking about a little bit higher than a 4.5. Let's see what else we got. Puerto Rico, typical movement there. South America, a handful of earthquakes. Let's look at the globe here real quick and see what we got. Really not a whole lot going on through the Atlantic. Let's check out the Iceland area real quick, and then we'll move on. Iceland, 68 earthquakes. It looks like it's going up a little bit here across the Grindavik area. Let me go to the live from Iceland site here. This has a lot of cool webcams out here. I don't see any visible activity in terms of lava flows there across the area. But we're definitely getting some earthquake activity out here across almost the entire region here where the magma intrusion had taken place here in the last couple months, and the fissure activity that opened up there north of the Hagafell region. It struck right about here. This is where the fissure activity opened up there in the middle of December last year, 2023. But we're getting a little bit more earthquake activity across a broad scale. I'm wondering if we're starting to see another push of magma into the region. Obviously we are. This earthquake activity is showing us that. And also down south here across the Grindavik area. Goodness. Let's see if we got any updates here from the Icelandic Meteorological Office here. Doesn't look like they put out another update yet. Yesterday they did, but they just chatted about the likelihood of an eruption near the crater area there around Iceland, which is northeast of Grindavik, in the area around northeast of Hagafell, roughly around this region right here. So it definitely looks a lot more active here today. Goodness. So we'll keep an eye on it. But I think if this thing were to kick up, we would know about it. I'm getting a little separate swarm over here as well, it looks like, in a totally different region. But we'll keep an eye on it. If this thing continues to increase here, it looks like some of these earthquakes in the last hour or so are away from the Grindavik area. But we'll keep an eye on it. Things are definitely a little bit more active looking here this morning. Well, this afternoon, I should say. And let's check out the GPS stations out here real quick. The Grindavik area, they did make a little hazard map here that includes the potential for fissure activity to open up within the Grindavik zone, which is zone 4. So that was a little adjustment that they made yesterday to the hazard map regarding the potential for volcanic activity out here. And again, they added fissure activity within the Grindavik zone 4. So that could happen outside of town. It could happen inside of town. Either way, it's something that we're still kind of watching there. As far as the GPS measurements go, well, the inflation continues here. No downturn, no super large uptick, but we are getting up there. We're getting up there in terms of the last eruption there, which relieved the inflation a little bit. But that was a short-lived eruption. Right after that, we started to climb right back up in terms of inflation activity there across the Svartsengi area, which is just to the west here of this line of activity, the magma intrusion. So things are definitely continuing. We'll keep an eye on this throughout the day today. That's a lot of earthquake activity, but not a lot compared to the fissure activity opening up back in 2023, last year, in December. We've seen hundreds of earthquakes open up here prior to that fissure activity opening up. So look for that. Right now, I'm not seeing it. It definitely looks like an increase here, but we're not seeing hundreds of earthquakes. Looking at a couple different swarms out here as well. So let's see. That's pretty deep there, about 7 kilometers or so. Dang. So some deeper movement going on here underneath this area. The shallower earthquake activity back over here, indicating that magma activity below. Even some of this is somewhat deep, but we'll watch it and, of course, report back on anything that changes out here. Mediterranean area looks fairly quiet today. Only a handful of earthquakes across the area. In California, I think I covered California, didn't I? Let me see what we got here. There wasn't really a whole lot aside from movement up north. Bay Area looks fairly quiet. One earthquake down here across the Garlock Fault. The shear zone just south here, 1.7. But all right, let's check out space weather activity, see if anything else is going on out here. Things look like they're mellowing out here. Not a whole lot of spikiness on the graph. We're still seeing some low-grade C-flare activity, but it's neutral. We're not getting that spiky, unsettled, popcorn-looking reading on the graph here. It's mellowing out, so things must be stabilizing there across the sunspots for now. Let's see what we got on the latest magnetogram image. Here's our newer region that we have a little bit better view of. Not quite impressive at all. The majority of these sunspots are stable. Maybe be able to produce a C-flare or two. I mean, we're already in the C-flare category. We might see a little stronger C-flare, but really nothing on here that shows or tells me that we're going to see anything larger than that Maybe the sunspot region right here has got a little central core around it. It might be a little complex, but goodness, not a whole lot of potential out there today. 99% chance for C flare, M flare at 45, X flare around 5% chance. These have been like that for the past couple days, so, and we'll just kind of watch it. But I'm really not expecting anything major. Not a whole lot of auroras in the forecast, unfortunately, until we get some active conditions there across the sunspots. We'll just continue to keep that in the minimal conditions here. KP index has been awfully low over the last few days or so. All right, Storm Prediction Center. Well, no severe weather threat out here today. Just general thunderstorm activity here across the southern portion of Florida. And that's about it. California, here's our rainmaker. Now, there's a lot of rain being produced out here across Northern California, but it's along the coast range. And these storm systems that come in from the west-northwest bring with it a lot of precipitation, but it gets halted right here across the coast range and leaves the valley areas where I'm at, Sacramento Valley, in a rain shadow, so to speak. See how it kind of skips over the valley, but then it goes up over the Sierra Nevada once again and squeezes out more moisture. So you get the uplift, the convection here across where the mountains are on the coast range, drier conditions in the valley, and then once again wet here. I don't like that. I don't like these storms that come out of the northwest. When they come out of the southwest here, it funnels that moisture in through the valley. No mountains out here to block the precipitation flow. And that's when we get our more wetter systems. But, you know, it is what it is. They're getting rainfall, and I'm hoping that will change in these next series of storms here. It looks like maybe some systems coming out of the south for the California area. We'll continue to watch that. Not really expecting any huge storms out here. In fact, the total accumulated precipitation map run here through almost the end of January of course, shows a lot of rain across the coast ranges here. In the valley, I don't know, maybe up to 2 inches or so and less as you go south. But January's our wettest month. I think January is, maybe February, one of the two for our rainy season. And it's been depressive. I mean, it hasn't been living up to par, so to speak. That's a GFS model. The ECMWF is a little bit more aggressive, so I'm hoping that this model will ring true in terms of rainfall accumulation out here. Looks a little bit more heavier down here across Northern California. All right, folks, I'm out of here. Stay safe. Appreciate all the comments out there on the Oklahoma activity. I'm kind of curious for the folks that live out here if you guys were informed that this whole area used to be oil fields or not. You know, there's a lot of subdivisions out here. It may even be more populated than this map. I don't know exactly when this map was taken, but obviously this area of Oklahoma is growing like crazy, and they got to have the room, right? But there's been some operations out here prior to that subdivision activity. I'm just kind of curious if anyone had mentioned it to you, maybe when you bought your home, or if you're renting, or if you bought some land out here. But also, is there any signs of former oil operations out here? Do you see maybe some old tanks anywhere? You know, I'm not really seeing it here on the maps. I just see a lot of housing out here. But this whole area, I mean, if we went back like on Google Earth, we could probably see the older imagery, but that's not needed because look at this. You know, these are all marked across the map here in terms of oil fields, past oil fields all over the place here. I'm just kind of curious if anyone had told you about that prior to moving into the region. Either way, we'll continue to check back on that. Seismograph stations out here across the globe look fairly quiet for now. A couple stations offline. Looks like the plate boundary ones, the PB stations. But I'm sure they'll come back. But either way, things look calm. We'll catch you guys back here later tonight, Saturday night party update. We'll catch you guys then. Have a good day. Enjoy your weekend. Take care.